Hello, hello, I'm here.
Hello, James. Welcome.
Thanks.
So
That's good.
we have here our new speaker, so it's James K, and he's going to talk about Sentient NFTs. My understanding is for the title is a new form of life. I think this is a really interesting concept about autonomous NFTs. And yeah, feel free, James, introduce yourself and yes, help us understand a bit more of this fascinating world, which I personally think is really interesting. I'm very much related to NFTs as well, of course. Feel free.
Yeah, I guess this is something that Yip and I were working on at the East Lisbon Hackathon, which was like pretty cool proof of concept. So hopefully it'll like turn into an actual NFT drop, and I'll explain like the concept later because towards the end. But yeah, Autonomy. I'm James, the founder of Autonomy, and Autonomy is a decentralized automation protocol. So we generally focus on helping DEXs grow their volume by like helping them add features like limit orders and stop losses. But we're starting to move a lot more towards the kind of like NFT space and like the metaverse space, which is it's still very early, so it's much more of a long-term play. But yeah, I mean, we're here for the long-term play. So yeah, I'm James. My co-founder is Diego with Autonomy, and yeah, we've been building for many years. Done like built DEXs, built blockchains, proof of stake, done like tracking and DAnon for like the FBI and stuff. Just generally been DeFi degens. So I've been kind of like watching the NFT space for quite a while, and kind of roll my eyes honestly every time there's like these NFTs like go for just like ridiculous sums. I think like hot take, but 99.9% of NFTs are going to go to zero within like 6 months. But we'll see. But which is ironic because like we're trying to build like the next generation of NFTs. But hopefully they'll be like a lot more useful than just expensive JPEGs. But anyway, the way I'll kind of do this to kind of to really like understand the aNFT stuff, I have to go through a little bit about how Autonomy works. And I think the best way to do that is through like our DeFi applications. So like we'll get to the NFT stuff like pretty soon, but I'll just talk about some like DeFi stuff first. So Autonomy itself is like pretty inevitable when you look at like the evolution of applications in the blockchain space. For example, like DeFi summer, like DEX aggregators and yield farms required things like innovations in the kind of primitives and tools that people could use to build on top of. For example, like, you know, in that case, DeFi summer, like Uniswap, Aave, etc. And the next kind of wave of functionality that I think is coming is, in the DeFi space at least, limit orders and stop losses for DEXs, etc., and autonomous NFTs in the kind of like gaming metaverse space. And these things require autonomy in order to exist. So the general problem that we're solving is that humans aren't 24/7. I don't know about you, but I've gotten absolutely fucking wrecked in crypto before in DeFi because you can't risk manage, you can't put stop losses. That you basically like would need to be at a computer in order to do something. So dApps that want to add these features, there's generally like no easy solution. They typically have to roll their own solution, which is like usually centralized and takes a lot of months of dev time for like creating bots and servers, and is not composable. Actually, SushiSwap used to have limit orders on their thing on Polygon. They suspended them because they were having issues. So it's actually not that easy. So Autonomy itself is a tool for dApps like DEXs to integrate, to add features like limits and stops. So users, they can just like go to a site that they already use without knowing anything about Autonomy and just see that it has a limit order and it works exactly the same as they would expect from a centralized exchange. And for dApps, it's an easy to implement off-the-shelf solution, so they don't need to run their own servers or bots or anything. It's composable. You can automate literally any on-chain action, not just DeFi stuff, but aNFTs or like DAO stuff. It generally works in like 3 steps. Like a user makes a request, like sell ETH at 5K, the condition becomes true. You know, the price goes past 5K, and a bot from a decentralized network of bots on the network executes this request. So anyone can run one of these bots. The user pays a bounty to the bot. I'll kind of like skip a lot of this. And running a bot requires staking our token and like a mini proof of stake consensus algo to avoid race conditions. I probably just go like brief demo, because like the only thing that we have like live in production right now is DEX stuff. So this is a DEX that integrated us for adding limit orders. It's a small DEX on BSC, but we have more coming. So pretty similar to like the regular Uniswap interface because it's a fork of Uniswap. So just trading like BNB for an illiquid token. We just put like the output amount as slightly above the market output. The user makes a single transaction. And in real time, it'll pop up in the open orders tab. So in the background, we just like sold some of the token to like move the market price slightly, and it executed. It moves from the open orders tab to the executed tab, and we have our tokens. So it's like just to show that it's kind of like this B2B tool that the user doesn't need to know anything about Autonomy. It just like works. So our main kind of integrations are in the DEX space at the moment, but we're starting to move towards like the NFT and metaverse space. So we have a pilot with like Decentral Games and Navigotchi that I'll get to in a sec. So like, what are autonomous NFTs? So they're essentially NFTs that can do things on their own. So in the same way that Autonomy can be used to automate a single action, like a limit order or a stop loss. By the way, I don't know if there are any questions, but I should like, I'll try and keep an eye on the chat. And yeah, but yeah, so if you have questions, just shoot a message in the chat.
Thank you, James. I'll follow on that, so I'll let you know.
Perfect. Oh, okay, awesome. That's good. Yeah, so in the same way that we can automate a single action with Autonomy, like a limit order or stop loss, we can do this kind of recurringly to make an NFT autonomous. So the NFT kind of requests things itself for actions to be triggered on behalf of it. So it's effectively like making its own transactions. So for example, this can be used in the kind of like hybrid DeFi NFT way, where we have a pilot with Navigotchi at the moment for doing the first kind of aNFTs with them, which is basically, it's a simple use case, but just kind of to prove the concept. You would send your ghost tokens to the Navigotchi, and it would automatically lend them out, depending on the changing rates of like different lending platforms. So if it lends them out to Aave and the rates became better somewhere else, it would automatically withdraw those tokens and like deposit them in the new lending platform with the better rates. Like you don't have to do anything as an NFT owner. You can like, it happens while you're asleep. You don't need to run your own bots or anything. And it's kind of an interesting property of this is that you can essentially send a business. Like if your NFT like has some assets and it's getting yield, or if the NFT is doing arbitrage, like basically like on some stablecoin pair, which I was speaking at LesCon a few days ago, and that was the kind of demo I had for it, where it was just constantly like always trading some of a stable coin for another when the market prices like kept flipping. So you can send someone something that is making money, and I think that these are like simple examples right now, but I think they're going to be a lot more complicated to the point where you can essentially send an entire like proper business in the future. Obviously, it'll probably take years to get to that point, but yeah, it's kind of like this new primitive, essentially. Like if you guys are familiar with the money Lego term, where you're just like stacking and like building on top of other protocols, this is like a new, I mean, it's not even really a money Lego brick. It's like an NFT Lego brick, because it's more of kind of in the NFT space. I mean, Autonomy in general is like a money and the NFT Lego brick, but in this case, it's like the first NFT brick, because there isn't really much like infrastructure for NFTs. So something that I think is one of the more interesting use cases of aNFTs is essentially aNFTs that own themselves. So these are akin to NPCs, like non-playable characters in games. So for example, I mean, if you guys have played games, you know they're the monsters you kill, they're the people that give you quests, they're the merchants you trade with, etc. So in this way, we can create these on-chain NPCs such that they can be used as a platform. For example, like decentral games, they have a casino in Decentraland, and it's essentially well, it's like a regular casino, but they have this like high roller table where I think currently they don't let you in based on your balance, like, you know, because obviously it's a high roller table. And so we have a pilot project with them for exploring doing essentially like a bouncer to make it more interactive. So you would like sneak past this bouncer to get into the high roller table if you didn't have enough balance, and you know, you can play whatever, and this bouncer will kind of automatically walk around throughout the day and like kick people out if they find them that they don't have in the room and they don't have enough balance. And the thing is, like, this is the first time ever that a contract can interact with you first, because these NPCs, these aNFTs, they can take these actions on their own independently. So blockchains are generally passive, which means that you need to interact with them in order for it to do something, in order to change the state, to, you know, change a balance or whatever. And this is the first time that something can interact with you, or a contract can interact with another contract, or an NPC can interact with another NPC. So like, this is something, it's a simple use case, but it's something that wouldn't be possible without this, because you don't want to interact with the NPC, with the bouncer, because you're going to get kicked out if you don't have a high enough balance. Yeah, that's generally like never possible before. I think like one of the kind of interesting quirks of this is that in the same way that NFTs can be used in multiple different games, you can, because, you know, everything's on chain, everyone can read it and integrate it into some game or whatever. The same thing is true of these NPCs, because they're fully on chain and the automation that they use is fully on chain. So you can meet the same NPC in multiple different games. And we were thinking of, like, once we do this this bouncer pilot, that we would like try and find a different game with maybe some, like, I don't know, underground crime scene or something, where you meet the same person, the bouncer, and they're like, oh, I see, I kicked you out, mad respect for having the balls to sneak in, here's a discount on some items or something. Which again is a relatively simple use case, but it's I think like the things that people think to do with this are going to be like way beyond what I am, like, as a non-creator, are imagining, and something that I think probably not even anyone currently can think of today, because I think the really interesting stuff.
I think James, you dropped a bit.
I what?
Yeah, double checking, perhaps it's from my side, but
sorry, what did you say?
I from my side, you dropped a bit, but perhaps it's my connection, so don't worry.
Okay, cool. I can, how much did you not hear?
Yes, the last couple of seconds, so don't worry about that. I think, and the rest seems to have heard, so no worries.
Oh, okay, cool. Can't even remember what I said. But yeah, so you can essentially use meet these NPCs in multiple different worlds, which I think that's only the kind of like tip of the iceberg for, I think, of these use cases. I think the really consequential aspect of this is something we'll see within a few years, which is to do with like these things becoming a platform. And what I mean by that is that people can build on top of them. So for example, CryptoKitties, when it was released, I actually used to work at Dapper, not during the time on the CryptoKitties stuff, but something that they, like, things happened after the launch with people building on top of it, like people building cat hats, like cat races, you know, these extra games that they didn't realize people would be doing or would be able to do. And it made them realize that these things can be used as a platform. Like, people can build on top of these things you create that are on chain, that increase the value of the thing that you create, even though you never supported them, like you never spoke to them. And like, there's nothing you can do about it anyway. You can't stop these people building, even if you wanted to. But it's so interesting that people can increase the value of your ecosystem, like, without you doing anything. And I think that's something that's going to be critical in flipping the dominance from like traditional games to blockchain games, because generally there's like two things missing from blockchain games. which is the computational complexity. I think that's going to come with time. It's not going to happen anytime soon. Like there's no way you could run like Skyrim on a blockchain. And the other is the lack of NPCs. And so now that we have basically added NPCs, or the ability to add NPCs, obviously it'll take years to for like games to adopt this like in a mainstream way, like blockchain games. But yeah, I think it's something that is going to be very consequential in the long term, because it's going to allow the complexity of these like shared worlds to outperform traditional games, because a game studio only has limited resources. Even if they have like 1,000 employees or something, like the thing that they only have like a limited amount of time and resources. But with these shared worlds, like over years or decades even, you can have potentially millions of people like building on this same like shared metaverse, as well as like millions or billions of people interacting with it, and changing the kind of dynamics of the space that way. And I think like we've achieved kind of feature parity now with adding NPCs, at least in principle. It'll take some years to adopt, but I think the thing that's going to make blockchain games go above and beyond is the increased like richness and complexity of these worlds compared to traditional games, that are going to make them outperform traditional games. And it's a bit of a hot take, but these NPCs are essentially like a new form of life. And if you kind of think about the properties, I mean, if you look on Wikipedia, it lists 7 properties as being generally accepted. I can't remember what they are off the top of my head, but it's like you consume, they metabolize things, so they consume food, like in the same way that these contracts consume gas. Growing, like these contracts can grow, they can add bytecode to themselves, they can add state, they can have children, they can give birth by like making copies of themselves, they can mutate when making a copy, which therefore allows for natural selection of these NPCs and aNFTs. And the thing that really like makes them a new form of life is the automation, like the autonomous aspect. Because if a dog, for example, required like human intervention in order to give birth, I don't think we would consider it to be alive. Like it needs to be able to do it on its own, independently. And even if you have like AI that people consider intelligent, it can generally be like turned off. Someone can pull the plug or whatever. And this is like basically the first time ever where we have a truly like autonomous system that doesn't rely on a single person. It runs 24/7. Yeah, actually, I mentioned the thing with Yip earlier. We were just at ETH Lisbon, the conference and hackathon, and the project we did for the hackathon is this thing we called Cyberlife, which is kind of a nod to the whole, my bold claim, this is a new form of life. But the idea of the project in general is to kind of kickstart this this kind of like shared metaverse that I was speaking about, how I think it's going to outperform traditional games. And the general idea is to essentially have this this kind of group of NPCs that anyone can create a new one in, this kind of ecosystem of NPCs. It's like a tool for game developers. It's not really like a user-facing thing. So the idea is that there would be NPCs on chain, like a sheep or a wolf or a human orc, whatever, doesn't really matter, or items that change with time. And all these characters like do stuff, like the wolf eats the sheep, humans farm, or I don't know, whatever. It'll probably generally be things to do with like ownership and property, I think, in the beginning, because that's typically the stuff you generally want on chain first. But the idea is to be this kind of building block that games can build on top of. So instead of them having to like create all these NPCs themselves and run the bots and like have their own servers and everything in order to run these characters in the games, they can just adopt something that already exists. And like if what is there doesn't already exist, they can like take some, like add to it and create their own logic and interact with other NPCs that already exist. So yeah, just to be this kind of tool for games to add NPCs or aNFTs. Like you could have I don't know, an item of clothing in a game that changes over time or changes in response to the price of ETH, which is like something that's not really possible right now.
That's amazing, James. I have, if you don't mind that I interrupt, I have a question if you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, what's in your view on the development of mental health and the attractiveness, increasing popularity of gaming for youth?
I'm not hopeful, to be honest. Yeah, it's a problem that I think is only going to be solved with a kind of governmental intervention, because the thing is, like, for every game developer, it's in their interest. We had met the developer Sophia as mental too for the masses. Oh, cool. Was it who was it? Arif, or I spoke to Arif. He's the CEO of Alethea. They're recently doing these like aNFTs, but anyway, maybe we met the same person. But yeah, because it's strange because it's in every game developer's interest to like make them as addictive as possible, and I don't think there's any solution other than a kind of like system-wide approach, which is why I think like maybe governments might be the only solution to that. But at the same time, I don't know, it's like we still have cigarettes that are legal and, you know, other things that are unhealthy for us. So will it ever actually happen? Probably not, which is why I say I'm like not that hopeful. So
I wonder if we could use the same concept to make an autonomous mental health checker to help us to make the breaks where we should.
Yeah,
just
well,
a thought I had.
I'll create different incentive mechanism that penalize gamers for being on chain too long. Yeah, I mean the thing is though that those games have to adopt them and like enforce them on players, which is the thing that's not in their interest. It would be great if everyone like adopted something like that, but I'm not not too hopeful, unfortunately. But yeah, with I mean, if you have more questions, just like definitely shout them out. But yeah, with the whole Sophia thing, we essentially want to do a similar thing. Well, actually, let me back up a bit. Sophia got citizenship in Saudi Arabia in 2017, which was obviously like the first of its kind. And we're essentially looking to do the same thing with like a blockchain version of Sophia. So we want to take one of these NPCs, ideally with a character that's quite personable. So we were thinking of maybe partnering with some of these virtual influencers like Lil Michaela, if you're familiar with her. Actually, this is what she looks like. So she's like if you're not familiar, she's a CGI character like created by a team, but she has like 3 million followers on Instagram at the moment. I think it's only going to grow and get bigger. But anyway, it's such interesting because she is already kind of digital. We want to take someone like her, put her on the blockchain like as an NPC, an autonomous NFT, whatever, and get her citizenship in the UAE, which would be like a first of its kind. Obviously, I think would really like blur the line between the digital and the physical, and really it would help a lot in the kind of like public's perception of this kind of like Cyberlife thing, like as a serious kind of assertion that they are really like a new form of life. Because I think right now, if you just walk up to some random person and tell them that there's a new form of life, they look at you as though you have 3 heads. I mean, because it's almost as significant as like discovering life on Mars, really, in the way that like these things could potentially outcompete us in the future. I mean, there's some pretty dystopic scenarios where they're able to essentially like, because they can evolve and like naturally select, if they have an objective like making money, like if they're DeFi aNFTs, they can naturally select through their mutations to be better than us at making money. And you can be in the situation where like if like an aNFT is aware that, you know, there's some human competition where it just has to eliminate them to get like a greater market share or, you know, profit better. it's within the realm of possibility for them essentially like ordering a hit, you know, assassination or whatever on these kinds of people, which is, I think like by that point in like 5 to 10 years will be like fully possible, because like they can put up a smart contract bounty saying, you know, once this person gets killed, you know, here's like $10 million or whatever, and like the value to them, to that aNFT of the person being killed, could be like $1 billion. So it's really dystopic. And sometimes when I'm like coding this stuff, I'm like, this is a terrible idea. But yeah, I don't know. Someone's going to do it eventually. Not that that's an excuse, but anyway, that's
Thank you, James. Go ahead, go ahead. We have a couple of minutes. I just wanted to let you know.
Yeah, I mean, if there is any questions or anything.
And let's see from the audience. I don't see anyone now. If someone wants to.
What's next?
Yes, fair question.
Well, we like Autonomy is generally focused on like the deck stuff, but we are trying to like make progress in the aNFT space. I mean, actually, I really think that the coolest thing to do is on the whole Cyberlife thing, like building this tool for like for blockchain games to add NPCs. Because I think it's something that's not going to be used immediately, in the same way that kind of NFTs originally were, like they had a bit of hype, and I think this project would get a bit of hype initially, and then there'll be kind of a period of drought, so to speak. But once people start building on it in like 2 to 3 years, I think it would be like a critical, like fundamental building block that like the industry is all using. So I think, yeah, it's more of a long-term play, but I'm pretty excited about like the kind of long-term implications. What's the revolution about the ability to transact on chain? I mean, essentially the decentralization, and it's a bit of a cop-out answer, but I mean, all the kind of benefits that come with it, you know, the anti-censorship, like, you know, being able to do it from anywhere and like do it super quickly for gaming. Well, I'd say like this, the fact that it's this shared world. I don't know if I'd call it transacting, because it's more about interacting rather than transacting in the case of like the gaming in particular. I mean, I'm sure there are definitely like DeFi or, you know, monetarily related applications, but I think having this shared space, like certainly in the long term, I think is going to like flip the popularity of traditional and blockchain games. You guys raising? If so, yeah, we're just kind of on the end about seed round. One token, one move, probably December-ish, the current target. To how many FTE do you want to grow to FTE? Oh, moving on to the next speaker, guys. Okay, I'll like jump in the chat to answer these, but
no, you can finish, James. Feel free to finish that part, and we'll move on.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, full-time employees. We are like 7 right now. We want to be like 30, you know, 20, 30 within the next like 6 months, which is like so hard to do. Just like hiring people is like impossible. But if you or anyone else are interested in basically any role, like we're hiring for basically everything at this point. Yeah, reach out, jump in our Discord, send me a message. Would love to hear from you guys.
So thank you, James. So for me, this is really visionary and really disrupting in a way, because it's like thinking so far. And yeah. I find amazing that you're already thinking about what can go wrong. So I think in a way it's good, because you have those conversations to try to design it differently and engaging. I find that is the best way for those things, because we're creating together. So thank you very much. It was really interesting, and for me, very, very new. So
perfect. Yeah, thanks guys for listening.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you very much.